The pen was already uncapped when he slid the folder across the table. I remember the light in that room, flat and gray, the kind that comes through frosted glass and makes everyone look tired. I remember the mediator's folded hands. I remember my husband's small, satisfied smile, the one he used to save for closing a sale. And I remember the pen lying on top of the parenting agreement like a gift someone had wrapped for me. "Take your time," Shane said. His voice was gentle. It was the gentle he used when he had already won. His lawyer leaned back, comfortable, a man who had done this 100 times and expected the 101st to go the same way. I put my hand flat on the table, not on the pen, on my phone, face down beside it. My thumb rested on the glass. My heart was going hard and slow, one beat at a time, the way it used to on the cutter when the seas came up and you had to sound calm on the radio anyway. I did not pick up the pen, but let me back up a little, because to understand what I did in that room, you have to understand what it cost me to get there, and you have to understand the man who thought a woman like me would sign. I am a lieutenant in the United States Coast Guard. I have worn the uniform for 11 years. I have pulled people out of water that wanted to keep them. I have stood watch on a bridge for months at a time while my whole life happened somewhere I could not see it. I say that not to sound hard. I say it so you understand what kind of woman my husband decided he could erase on paper. My name surfaced in that mediation room the way it surfaces everywhere. Somebody said it. Lieutenant Rourke. I never introduced myself that way. I do not have to. The record does it for me. Back up to the 6th of October, 2025, a pier before dawn, cold coming off the water. My cutter was getting underway on a counter-narcotics patrol in the Eastern Pacific, and I would be gone for a long time. The number I did not say out loud that morning was 153. 153 days. My daughter Maisie was 7. She had her arms locked around my neck and would not let go. Her face was buried in my collar, and she smelled like the strawberry shampoo we always fought about at bath time. "How many sleeps?" she asked into my neck. She always asked in sleeps. "A lot of sleeps," I said, "but every one of them gets us one closer." My son Reese was 4. He was asleep on Shane's shoulder, one shoe already lost somewhere in the dark parking lot. He did not wake up to say goodbye. I told myself that was a mercy. I kissed his hair anyway. "Go do your job," Shane told me. He kissed the top of my head. "We'll be fine, I promise." "Call me when you can," I said. "Put them on, even for a minute, even if they're grumpy, even if they're asleep. Hold the phone up so I can see them breathing." "Every time," he said. "I promise." He made a lot of promises that morning. I counted on all of them. That was the last easy thing I did for half a year. I want to be fair to the marriage. The marriage deserves a fair witness, even now. It had not been good for a while. We both knew it. Somewhere in the years of my deployments and his resentments, the two of us had stopped being partners and started being roommates who shared a mortgage and 2 children. I'm not going to pretend I was blameless. I was gone a lot. That is the shape of the job. But being gone for your country is not the same as being gone from your children, and Shane knew the difference, and he chose to blur it anyway. In the spring before the patrol, Shane had started using a word that sounded reasonable and mature. He used it like a man laying track. We were doing dishes. The kids were in bed. He dried a plate slowly, which he only did when he was about to say something he had rehearsed. "I've been thinking," he said, "if we ever got to the point where we couldn't fix this. I wouldn't want a war, no lawyers bleeding us dry, no dragging the kids through it. We're better than that. We just do it quietly. Stay friends, split things fair." "Amicable," I said. "Amicable," he agreed. He smiled. "Exactly." I believed him then. I thought I was married to a tired man, not a patient one. There is a difference, and it took me too long to learn it. A tired man wants the fighting to stop. A patient man wants you to stop watching. I should have seen it earlier. There were signs if I had been the kind of wife who audits her own marriage, and I was not. After my last deployment, 2 years before, he had been strange about the money. He had wanted my pay routed into an account I did not see the statements for simplicity, he said, so the bills would just get handled while I was gone. I had said no, gently, and he had smiled and dropped it, and I had thought nothing of it. I think about that smile now. It was the same smile. Dropped, not defeated, filed away for later. There was another sign, and it hurt more. In the last year, he had started narrating my absences to the children in a particular way. Not cruel, just slightly off. Mommy chose to go. Not Mommy has to go for her job, which is the truth, but Mommy chose to go, which is a knife with a smile on the handle. I corrected him once. He apologized once, and then he kept doing it. quietly, on the nights I was not there to hear, and I only found out how often much later. From a 7-year-old with a good memory. I did not connect any of it at the time. That is the thing about a patient man. He does not give you a single moment big enough to wake you up. He gives you 100 small ones spaced far enough apart that each one is easy to explain away. I carried that word onto the ship. Amicable. I said it to myself on hard nights like a prayer. If it came to that, it would be clean. He had promised. He was tired, but he was decent. That was the story I told myself. And the story got me through a lot of watches. Amicable did a lot of work for a man who was already counting the rooms in our house. The house mattered. I need you to hold on to the house, because they did. 3 bedrooms on a quiet street 6 miles from the base. We bought it in 2019, the year Maisie was born. We owed a little under $310,000 on it. Both our names were on the deed. Both our names were on the mortgage. It was an ordinary house. It had a crayon mark on the kitchen door frame where we measured the kids every birthday, a little ladder of pencil lines climbing the white paint. It was the only home either child had ever known. On the ship, the days ran together the way they do. Watch, sleep, watch, eat, watch. We had connectivity in Windows when the systems allowed and the mission allowed, which was not often and never on my schedule. I wrote emails at 2 in the morning my time and sent them into the dark and hoped. I signed up for every morale call slot I could get. On a ship, you sign a list, and the list is a record, and I did not know then how much that record would come to matter. I would stand in a passageway with a borrowed handset and wait for a screen to fill with my children's faces. Sometimes it did. I want to tell you about one of those calls because it is the truest thing I have, and because the enemy in this story spent 9 months trying to convince a court it never happened. It was a Sunday in November. The connection held for 11 whole minutes, which was a miracle. Maisie held Reese up to the camera and narrated his whole day like a sports announcer. He ate 3 waffles, Mommy, 3, and he cried at the vacuum again. I did not cry, Reese said with enormous dignity. You cried a little. A little is not crying. I laughed so hard the sailor waiting behind me for the handset started laughing too, and he had not even heard the joke. Maisie showed me a drawing of our whole family, 4 stick figures and a sun, and a gray blob she said was the ocean, and a smaller blob on the ocean she said was me. That's your boat, she said. So you're not really gone. You're just on the blob. Just on the blob. I have thought about that 1,000 times since. 11 minutes. Then the screen froze and went black and the miracle was over. I said goodnight to a black rectangle, and I meant it, and I went back on watch. That was November. By January, the miracles had stopped. The calls would connect to a black screen. Shane's voice, thin and busy. Bad time, they're in the bath. They're already down, sorry. Signal's terrible on our end, try tomorrow. Reese is having a hard week, it just upsets him. Maybe give it a bit. The screen stayed black. I would say goodnight to nothing anyway, because somewhere behind the black was my son, and I did not want the last thing he heard from his mother to be a woman who had given up. I told myself it was the connection. I told myself he was overwhelmed, one parent doing the work of 2. I made excuses for him with the same discipline I used to make range calculations. Carefully, repeatedly, wrong every time. I did not know I was already inside the plan. I did not know that every black screen was a brick in a wall he was building. I would learn all of it. But not yet. First, I had to come home. The cutter came home on the 8th of March, 2026. I had pictured that day for 153 of them. The reunion on the pier, Maisie hitting me at a run, Reese deciding whether he remembered me and then deciding he did. It was not like that. Shane brought the kids, but he stood back, and the kids were shy in a way that hurt. It was the particular shyness of children who have been handed a story about you while you were gone. Maisie hugged me hard, and then she looked at her father like she needed permission to be that happy. Reese called me by my first name once. Hi, Delaney. Like a guest, like the neighbor's aunt. Something in my chest cracked at that, quietly, where no one could see. They're just tired, Shane said. Big day, they'll warm up. I slept in the guest room that first night. He had suggested it, kindly, framing it as space, as respect, as one more mature and amicable thing. I had been awake for what felt like a week, and I did not have the fight in me, so I said yes. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself a lot of things in those 4 days. The kids were warming up slowly. Maisie had started climbing into my lap again. Reese had let me read him a bedtime story on the 3rd night, sitting stiff at first and then melting into me by the last page the way small children do. I thought, we are going to be okay. I thought the hard part was the ocean, and the ocean is over. Then, on the fourth night, everything I had told myself fell apart in one text message. It was the 12th of March, 11:47 at night. I was awake in the guest room, staring at the ceiling, listening to the house I had paid for make its small night sounds, when my phone buzzed on the nightstand. The message was from a number I did not have saved. I almost did not read it. I am glad past all measure that I did. It said, "Confirmed for Thursday the 19th, 2 p.m. Once she signs the mediation papers, you get the house in full custody. She'll never see it coming. Keep her rushed and grateful. Don't let her talk to her own lawyer. Frey." I read it once. My heart stopped. I read it a second time. My hands went cold. I read it a third time. And I understood. It had not been meant for me. It had been meant for Shane. Somebody named Frey had typed my husband's phone number, gotten one single digit wrong, and sent my husband's entire plan to me instead of to him. There was a fourth read. On the fourth read, the other voice arrived. Not the wife, the officer. The one the Coast Guard spent 11 years building. It spoke very quietly, the way it does when the ship is in trouble and panic will kill you. It said, "Do not answer. Do not go downstairs. Do not wake him. Do not scream. This is evidence now. Evidence has a chain. You do not break the chain by feeling things at it. Copy everything. Then, and only then, you may feel." So I did not answer. I took a screenshot. Then I picked up the small tablet I kept in my bag, and I photographed the phone screen with it. So the sender's number and the timestamp sat inside a picture on a second device that nothing on the phone could quietly reach in and edit. I emailed both images to myself. Then I emailed them again to an old account I almost never used, so there would be a copy in a second place with its own timestamp. I opened my notebook, the green one I keep for watch notes out of habit, and I wrote the date and the time in ink. Spelled out, the 12th of March, 11:47 at night. Text received an error from the office of an attorney named Frey. Then I sat on the edge of that guest bed in the house I had paid for from a ship on the far side of an ocean, and I let myself understand the shape of it. The separation was never going to be amicable. Amicable was the anesthetic. Thursday was the surgery. He was not going to negotiate with me. He was going to run me, jet-lagged and desperate to keep the peace, into a room and out the other side of it without the house and without my children. And he had hired a man named Frey to make sure I never slowed down enough to think. Keep her rushed and grateful. Do not let her talk to her own lawyer. Every black screen made sense now. The shy kids on the pier made sense. The guest room made sense. It was not a lonely man doing his best. It was a plan with a timeline, and I had just been handed the timeline by accident. The next morning I had to sit across a breakfast table from him and pretend I still believed my life was my life. That was the hardest acting I have ever done. Harder than any calm radio call in any storm. Shane made pancakes. He was cheerful. He was, I realized, a man 4 days from getting everything he wanted, and it made him generous. "Big news," he said, flipping one. I talked to a mediator. Neutral, no lawyers really, just someone to help us do the paperwork the friendly way. She had a cancellation Thursday. I know it's fast, but honestly, faster is kinder, right? Rip the bandage. Let's just get it settled and start being friends. "Thursday," I said. I kept my voice light. I put syrup on Maisie's plate. My hand did not shake, and I was proud of my hand. 2 o'clock, I'll drive. He set a pancake in front of me, shaped like a lopsided heart, the way he used to make them when we were happy. "It's all pretty standard. You won't even need a lawyer. Saves us both the money. We agreed on that, remember? Amicable." "I remember," I said. He smiled at me. He actually smiled. He thought I was still on the blob. "You're taking this really well," he said. "I'm just tired," I said. "It's been a long trip home." Under the table, my thumb pressed the outside of my pocket, where the phone sat with his whole plan inside it. He wanted me rushed and grateful. He was going to get a witness instead. I did not sleep that night. I planned. By 6 the next morning, I had made 3 decisions. I would not confront Shane. I would not sign anything. And I would not walk into that room on Thursday without someone of my own beside me who did this for a living. The Coast Guard has a legal assistance office for exactly the worst mornings of your life. I dropped the kids at school, told Shane I had errands on base, and I was in the waiting room when the office opened. The attorney who took me back was a lieutenant commander named Nadia Serrano. She had the calm of a person who has watched a great many strong people fall apart in her chair and has never once made them feel small for it. I put my phone on her desk and let her read the text. She read it the way I had. More than once. When she looked up, her face had changed. "I want to be careful with my words," she said. "This is not a nasty divorce. A licensed attorney has put in writing that he intends to deprive you of custody through a rushed proceeding and to keep you from your own counsel. That is not a strategy. That is a plan. And he signed it. So what do I do? First, the boring part that saves your life. You do not sign anything on Thursday, but you also do not miss Thursday. If you skip it, they will call it abandonment, and abandonment is the whole story they are trying to tell. So you show up. You stay calm. You have your own lawyer in that room, and you let your lawyer do the talking. He said, I don't need a lawyer. He said it saves money. Of course he did, Serrano said. The man being paid to take your children told you not to hire anyone to stop him. Sit with that for a second, and then never do what he says again. She started to work. She printed my orders. She printed the vessel's underway schedule. She pulled the morale call sign-up records and the message traffic that showed communications had been intermittent and controlled by the mission, not by me. She wrote a memorandum on official letterhead stating that from the 6th of October to the 8th of March, Lieutenant Delaney Rourke had been deployed aboard a United States Coast Guard cutter, and that communications with home had been governed by operational conditions. This letter, she said, sliding it into a folder, is the first nail in the coffin of the word abandonment. There will be more, but this is the one with the anchor on it. At the door, she stopped me. You are going to want to hate him today, she said. Do not spend the energy. Hate is loud. You need to be quiet and exact. Quiet and exact wins this. Loud loses it. Do you understand me, Lieutenant? Quiet and exact, I said. Say it again like you mean it. Quiet and exact. Good. Go get a shark of a family lawyer and stay off that man's radar until Thursday. That afternoon, I sat across from Vera Ostrander. Vera was somewhere in her 50s, silver hair cut short, reading glasses she looked over instead of through. Her office smelled like coffee and old paper. She read the text without any change of expression at all, which somehow steadied me more than sympathy would have. Well, she said, setting the phone down. He put it in writing, and his lawyer put his name on it. She almost smiled. Do you know how rarely that happens? People plan things like this every single day in my line of work. They just do not usually mail you the plan. I keep thinking I should be angrier, I said. I keep waiting to feel it. You will. Save it. Anger is expensive, and we are on a budget. She pulled a legal pad toward her. Here is what we are going to do, and here is what we are not going to do. We are not going to call Shane and scream. We are not going to forward this to your mother-in-law or post it or throw it in his face over breakfast. The instant you do that, this stops being a plan he made and becomes a fight between two angry spouses. And when a court sees a fight between two angry spouses, it starts dividing the blame into halves. We do not want halves. Halves means you lose half your kids. We want the whole truth standing up by itself in the middle of the room. So we just keep his appointment. We keep Thursday. She wrote the word and underlined it twice. You walk in. You are polite. You are quiet. You let me talk. And at exactly the right moment in front of a neutral officer of the court, we let his plan describe itself. In his own lawyer's words, a confession is worth 10 arguments. He wrote us a confession. We are going to let him read it in a room where it counts. And between now and Thursday, we build. Here's the thing about being a service member, Lieutenant. You think the deployment is your weakness in this case. It is your strongest weapon. Because every single day you were gone, some machine somewhere wrote down that you existed. Ships keep logs, phones keep logs, banks keep logs, schools keep logs. His whole story needs you to have vanished. We are going to collect the proof that you never did. There was a moment driving home from her office when I nearly turned the car around and went straight at Shane. I wanted to walk into that house and hold up my phone and watch his face fall. I wanted the loud version. I wanted it so badly my hands ached on the wheel. Then I heard Serrano, quiet and exact. I drove home. I made spaghetti. I asked Maisie about her spelling test. I let Shane tell me about the mediator again, and I nodded, and I said Thursday would be fine. For the first time since the cutter tied up, I could breathe all the way down. I was not a woman waiting for her life to end. I was an officer with a mission and a timeline and a folder full of nails. The mission started with an old man and a spiral notebook. Franklin Ives lived 2 doors down, 70 years old, a widower, a retired merchant mariner who had spent his own life on ships and understood, without my ever explaining it, exactly what it costs to be a parent from the middle of an ocean. During the patrol, he had done the thing good neighbors do without being asked. He had kept an eye on the house. I went to his porch on a Saturday afternoon while Shane had the kids at his mother's. Ives put a mug of coffee in my hands before I got a full sentence out. "I wondered when you would come by," he said. "I have been sick about it, Delaney. I saw some things I did not like. I did not know if it was my place to say. So I did the only thing a sailor knows how to do when he does not know what else to do. I kept a log." He went inside and came back with a spiral notebook, the cheap kind, from the grocery store. He had dated every entry in careful block letters. "Your husband would set the tablet up on your kitchen counter when you called," Ives said. "I could see it through my kitchen window into yours, plain as anything, especially at night with your lights on. The kids would come running when it rang, and then the screen would go black on your end. Your face would be right there, Delaney, right there on that little screen, and those two babies would be waving at it, and he would be standing off to the side telling you the connection was no good." He opened the notebook and turned it toward me. "I counted," he said. 41 times. 41 times. Those kids waved at a black screen while he told you it was broken. I did not know why I was counting. I do now." I sat down on his porch step. I did not cry, though it was close, because 41 is a number, and numbers I can hold. "Would you tell that to a judge?" I asked. "I will tell it to anybody with a pulse," Ives said. "I raised a daughter mostly by radio myself, back in my day. Missed her whole 8th grade year on a tanker. Nobody, and I mean nobody, gets to stand in a courtroom and tell your children you disappeared, when I watched you fight for every second from the far side of the world." I took the notebook to Vera. She had it photographed page by page and then handed it right back to him for safekeeping, because chain of custody matters for a grocery store notebook, the same as it matters for anything else. Then I did the harder work. I sat at my own kitchen table after the kids were asleep, and I laid out my record like a watch bill, the certified orders, the vessel's underway schedule, the morale call sign-up sheets, which the ship tracks because everything on a ship is tracked. My sent emails, dozens of them, time-stamped in the small dead hours when I could reach a signal, everyone asking about school, asking to talk, saying I loved them, screenshots of the calls that connected, and the far longer list of the calls that connected to nothing. 153 days. I went through everyone. I was looking for the day the story needed, the day I stopped being their mother. There was no such day. There was no gap. There was a mother reaching across an ocean, over and over, and a wall being built on the other side, one black screen at a time. Something small happened that week that told me the wall had cracks in it. I was tucking Maisie in. She was almost asleep, and she said into her pillow, not really meaning to say it, "Daddy said you might not want to see us as much now that you're back. He said sometimes moms who go away get used to being away." I kept my voice very even, quiet and exact. "Do you believe that?" She thought about it, half asleep. "No," she said. "You called all the time. The screen was just broken." The screen was just broken. My 7-year-old had defended me without even knowing there was a case. I sat in the dark of her room until her breathing went slow and deep. And then I went, and I added that to my notes too, the date and what she said, in ink, because a mother remembers everything and a court needs it written down. There was one more place the paper lived, and I almost forgot to look because it was so ordinary. The school. I met with Maisie's teacher on a gray Wednesday afternoon in a small classroom that smelled like glue and pencil shavings. Her name was Ms. Trentham, and she pulled out a folder before I even finished explaining why I had come. "I keep everything," she said. "Old teacher habit." She had the emails I had sent from the ship. All of them. Notes to check on Maisie's reading, to ask about a friend problem, to say I would miss the fall concert, but please record it. She had the record of the parent-teacher conference I had joined by video call from the middle of the Pacific at 4 a.m. my time, my face on a laptop, propped on a tiny chair. "You were the only deployed parent I have ever had who made a 2 a.m. conference," she said. "I remember it. You asked better questions than most of the parents sitting right in front of me." "Would you write that down?" I asked. "Exactly what you just said, on school letterhead." "I will do better than that," Ms. Trentham said. "I will come and say it out loud to whoever needs to hear it." I drove home with her folder photocopied and my chest tight in a good way. The story he was selling needed me to have vanished. And here was a teacher, a neighbor, a daughter, and a filing cabinet full of my own reaching hands, all saying the same thing. I never left. I was only ever on the blob. "The story he is selling," I told Vera on the phone that night, Needs me to have gone away. And the paper says you never did, she said. The paper and a neighbor, and now your own little girl, half asleep. Keep going, Lieutenant. You are doing everything right. The next reveals I did not have to go looking for. They came to us the way the truth often does, once you make room for it, through a preservation letter and a stack of documents nobody thought I would ever be allowed to see. Vera sent Frey's office a formal letter demanding that all records relevant to the case be preserved, and she filed for discovery. In an ordinary divorce, both sides exchanged documents. Shane and Frey had built their whole plan on the belief that I would sign on Thursday before any of that ever happened. Once I did not sign, the ordinary course started grinding, slow and patient, and the ordinary course does not care what you planned. The draft parenting plan came first. Vera slid it across her desk to me on a Tuesday. Read the custody section out loud, she said. Slowly. I want you to hear it in your own voice. I read it. It gave Shane sole legal and sole physical custody. It gave me supervised visitation, 4 hours, twice a month, at a facility I would pay for out of my own pocket. It described me, in the flat gray language of a legal document, as a parent with, quote, a pattern of prolonged voluntary absence, and, quote, documented instability related to service. Documented instability, I said. I put the page down. Where is it documented? It is not, Vera said. That is the tell. They wrote the conclusion first and were planning to build the file to match it later. That is why Thursday was everything to them. If you sign, they never have to prove a word. The signature becomes the file. The signature makes it all true, retroactively, and no evaluator ever has to actually meet your kids. Something happened at home that week that told me they had started to feel the ground shift, even before they understood why. Shane got nervous. He did not know I had the text. He did not know I had a lawyer. But he could feel that I was not behaving like a woman being carried, and it made him press. He came into the kitchen one night while I was washing a pot. He stood too close. I've been thinking, he said. Thursday feels far away. What if we moved it up? Constance said she might have a Monday slot. Rip the bandage, right? The kids can feel the tension. It's not good for them. There it was again. The kids. The lever. Monday's tight for me, I said. Quiet and exact. I did not turn around. I kept scrubbing the pot. Let's keep Thursday. It's already on the calendar. You seem different since you got back, he said. Calmer. I thought you'd be more upset about all this. I'm just tired, Shane, I said. It's been a long trip home. He stood there another moment. I could feel him trying to read the back of my head. Then he went to bed. I finished the pot. My hands were perfectly steady, and I hated that they had to be, and I was grateful that they were. He wanted to move up the surgery because the patient had stopped acting. Sedated. I did not let him. Thursday was mine now, not his. He just did not know it yet. Then came the internal messages. Frey's office had been sloppy, the way arrogant people are sloppy, because they never expected anyone to look. Among the produced documents were emails between Shane and his lawyer. They were worse than the text. They were the whole machine, with the cover off. Vera handed me the first one. From Frey to Shane, dated the last week of February, while I was still at sea. Read it, she said. Possession is everything in these cases, I read. Keep the children in the house through the signing. If she moves out, or if you move them, we lose the status quo argument and a judge could send them back. Let her come home to the setup. She will be disoriented and jet-lagged and eager to keep things friendly. That is our window. Do not widen it by picking fights. Be the calm one. Let her come home to the setup. I read that line 3 times. That was the shy kids on the pier. That was the guest room. Offered so kindly. That was the black screen. 41 times. Not accidents. Not a tired man doing his best. A setup described in advance, in writing, by the man being paid to build it and executed by the man I had married. There's more, Vera said, and slid me a second page. This one was from Shane, replying. I read it slower. She won't fight it. She hates conflict and she'll want to protect the kids from a mess. That's the whole plan, right? We make fighting look like the thing that hurts them, so she signs to keep the peace. I set that one down very carefully because my hands wanted to crush it. He was going to use my love for my own children as the lever, I said. He was going to turn the best thing about me into the thing that beat me. Yes, Vera said. Her voice was quiet. And now a judge is going to read that he said so in his own words, on the record. That is the difference between what he planned and what is going to happen. He planned in the dark. This ends in the light. There was one more thread. It was the one that told me who Shane had actually become, somewhere in the years I was on the water. The money. While I was deployed, Shane had applied for a home equity line of credit against our house. $60,000. The application was dated the same week in February as Frey's possession email. A first draw of $8,000 had already gone out. And I could see where some of it went because right there on the statement was a payment to the law office of Sutton Frey. He was not only trying to take the children and the house, he was borrowing against the roof over their heads to pay the man helping him do it. He was going to make the kids' own home fund the case to take them. That was the moment the anger Vera had told me to save finally arrived. It came all at once, in her quiet office, and it was not loud. It was cold. It was clean. It felt less like fire and more like ice going solid. I did not slam anything. I did not cry. I looked at Vera and I said, "Okay, now I'm angry." She smiled, just a little. "Good," she said. "You earned it. Now put it back in the folder and let's use it. Every lie he told needed a document, and every document he made has a date on it. And the dates, I said, are all on my side." Thursday came, the 19th of March, 2:00 in the afternoon. I dressed carefully, not in uniform. Vera and I had talked about it. "You do not need the uniform in that room," she had said. "You are not there to perform. Let the paper be your uniform." So I wore a plain gray blazer, and I put my hair up, and I tried to look like a calm woman and not like a woman carrying a folder that could end a man. Shane drove. He was cheerful in the car. He talked about maybe taking the kids camping in the summer, and he asked if I wanted to grab coffee after, once it was all settled, once we were friends. I said coffee sounded nice, quiet and exact. I watched the road, and I let him build his good mood as high as he wanted, because the higher it was, the farther it had to fall. The mediation was in a conference room in a building near the courthouse. Neutral ground. The mediator was a woman named Constance Held, a retired family court commissioner who did this work now to keep the worst cases from ever reaching a docket. She had a low, even voice, and the patience of someone who has heard every version of every lie and simply waits for the truth to run out of places to hide. When Vera and I walked in together, Shane's cheerful expression flickered. Just for a second. He had not expected a lawyer. He had been promised I would not bring one. Sutton Frey was already seated. He was exactly the man I had pictured from a single text. Expensive suit, easy smile, the confidence of a man who has never once been the least prepared person in a room. "Lieutenant Rourke," Frey said, warm as a host at his own party. "Thank you for coming." His eyes went to Vera. "And you have brought counsel. That is certainly your right. I hope we can still keep today friendly and efficient." Vera said nothing. She set her folder down and folded her hands on top of it and waited. Constance Held walked us through the ground rules in her even voice. Then Frey took the floor, because men like Frey always assume the floor belongs to them. He was smooth. I will give him that. He talked about Shane as, quote, the primary hands-on parent for the last year. He talked about, quote, the children's stability and their established routine. He talked delicately, sorrowfully about, quote, the reality of a parent whose career requires long and repeated absences from the home. He never once said a cruel word. That was the whole craft of it. He built a picture of me as a stranger to my own children without a single sentence you could stand up and object to. Shane sat beside him and looked at the table with a practiced sadness. Then Frey slid the agreement across to me. The same custody section I had read in Vera's office. Sole custody to Shane. Supervised visits for me. He set the pen on top of it. My client is being genuinely generous here, Frey said. Supervised visitation is a starting point. It can be revisited down the road as trust is rebuilt. But honestly, Lieutenant, between us, I would sign today, before he reconsiders how generous he is feeling. Shane gave me the gentle smile. Take your time, he said. That is where the cold open comes back around. The pen, the smile, my hand flat on the table on my phone, not on the pen. I did not take my time. I did not need it. I had already used 153 days. Ms. Held, I said. My voice was steady, quiet, and exact. Before I sign anything, I would like to enter a document into this mediation. It came from Mr. Frey's office. I would like him to read it out loud. If he will not, I will. Frey's smile did not move, but something behind his eyes did. I am not sure what you think you have, Lieutenant, but this is a mediation, not a courtroom, and I would caution you against theatrics. I turned my phone over. I turned it so the screen faced the middle of the table, and I slid it gently toward Constance Held. "It is a text message," I said. "Sent from that number at 11:47 at night on the 12th of March. To me, by mistake. It was meant for my husband." Held picked up the phone. She put on her glasses. She read it once to herself. I watched her read it, and I watched the room, and I saw the exact instant the ground tilted. She read it out loud. "Confirmed for Thursday the 19th, 2 p.m. Once she signs the mediation papers, you get the house in full custody. She will never see it coming. Keep her rushed and grateful. Do not let her talk to her own lawyer." She looked up over the glasses. "It is signed. Frey." The room went very quiet. It was the quietest room I have ever been in, and I have stood in the middle of the ocean at night. "That is not what it appears to be," Frey started. "It appears to be a text message from your number," Constance Held said, describing a plan to obtain custody through a rushed signing while deliberately keeping this woman from her own counsel. "Is it from your number, Mr. Frey? It is a simple question. Is this your number?" Frey did not answer. That was the answer. He tried, a beat later, the way drowning men try. He reached for the confident voice and it came out thin. "Ms. Held, a text message taken out of context is not evidence of anything. My client and I object to this. This entire display is improper, and frankly, it looks coached." He turned to me. "Lieutenant, you are hurting your own case with theatrics like this. A judge is not going to appreciate an ambush." "Then you will have no trouble explaining it to one," Vera said. It was the first thing she had said in the entire session. She did not raise her voice. She just laid it down. "Because that is exactly where it is going." Frey looked at her. Whatever he saw made him stop talking. Shane had stopped looking sad. He was staring at his lawyer, and his lawyer was staring at his own hands. "We are stopping," Constance Held said. She set the phone down carefully, the way you set down something that has just become evidence. "I am a neutral in this room. I do not take sides, and I am not going to start now. But I'm also an officer of the court, and I will not sit on this. This is going on the record. It is going to the judge. And I am obligated to note, for that record, that counsel appears to have authored a written plan to deprive a party of custody through a rushed proceeding and to obstruct her access to representation. This mediation is concluded. There will be no agreement signed here today, and there will not be one signed later either." I did not gloat. I want you to know that. There was no triumph in me. What I felt was colder and better than triumph. I felt the truth pick up the weight so that I did not have to carry it alone anymore. The room he had built to rush me had just become the room where his own plan was read out loud. There was one more piece. It landed the following week, and it mattered as much as the text. The court had appointed a custody evaluator, a psychologist named Dr. Camden Brooks, to assess the children and both parents. Frey had assumed the evaluation would show two kids bonded to their father and wary of a returning stranger. He had built his whole timeline around it. Come home to the setup. Dr. Brooks spent hours with Maisie and Reese. He watched them play. He watched them with each of us separately. He asked them the careful, sideways questions that a good evaluator asks, the ones children answer honestly because they do not see them coming. He interviewed me for 2 hours. He did not go easy. He asked about the deployments, all of them, and about the marriage, and about my anger, and whether I had ever thought of leaving the service for the kids. I told him the truth about all of it. I told him I had thought about leaving 100 times, and had not, and that I carried that. He wrote things down and did not tell me what they were. Near the end, he set down his pen. "I am going to ask you something, and I want the honest answer, not the good one," he said. "If the court gave your husband more time with them than you think he has earned, could you still support their relationship with him?" "Yes," I said. That was fast. "I have had a long time to think about it," I said. "He is going to be their father for the rest of their lives. I am not going to spend mine teaching my kids that half of where they come from is the enemy. What he did was to me. It was not to them. I would like to keep it that way." He picked his pen back up. He wrote for a while. "You would be surprised," he said, "how few parents in that chair can say that and mean it." The part that undid the whole case, though, was not my interview. It was a small thing he told Vera he had observed, and it made it into the report. During his home visit, when Reese skinned his knee on the front step, the boy did not run to his father, who was standing right there. He ran past him across the yard to me. 4 years old, 153 days at sea, and when it counted, when it hurt, his body still knew exactly whose arms were home. His report was 6 pages. Vera read me the part that mattered, over the phone. "The children are securely attached to their mother," Brooks had written. Both spoke about her spontaneously and warmly, without prompting. Neither displayed fear or avoidance in her presence. The younger child's initial reticence resolved fully within a single session and is consistent with a lengthy separation, not with estrangement or with any history of harm. There is no clinical basis for the characterization of the mother offered in the proposed parenting plan. There is no clinical basis. 6 pages, and that one sentence undid 9 months of a story. The hearing was the 14th of May, County Family Court, Judge Adela Coburn. I had been in courtrooms before, but never as the person the whole room was about. I sat next to Vera, I kept my hands folded, and I did the thing the service had taught me on 100 bad nights. I stayed still while the storm decided what it was going to do. Frey was not there. That told me something before the hearing even began. In his place sat a different attorney from his firm. Younger, careful, a man clearly assigned to contain a fire rather than to win a case. Shane sat beside him and did not look at me once. Judge Coburn had read everything. You could tell within her first minute on the bench. She had the whole record, and she moved through it without any drama at all, which was somehow more devastating than drama would have been. The court has reviewed the proposed parenting plan, she said, the communications produced in discovery, the deployment records certified by the United States Coast Guard, the evaluator's report, and a text message entered into the mediation record on the 19th of March. The court will read that message into today's record. She read it aloud. The same words, a second time. Now in a courtroom, from a judge, into the permanent record of the state. Once she signs the mediation papers, you get the house in full custody. She will never see it coming. She set the paper down and folded her hands. In many years on this bench, Judge Coburn said, this court has rarely seen a plan described this plainly by the very people who made it. Then she took up Shane's sworn affidavit, the one that claimed I had voluntarily absented myself and was unstable. She went through it against the record, line by line, and each line fell. The affidavit states that the respondent was voluntarily absent from the home, she said. The certified record shows the respondent was on ordered military deployment aboard a Coast Guard cutter for 153 days. The affidavit states the respondent made no meaningful effort to remain in the children's lives. The record shows dozens of logged communication attempts, a neighbor's contemporaneous written account of 41 video calls terminated on the petitioner's end, and the respondent's own dated correspondence. The affidavit alleges documented instability related to service. No such documentation exists anywhere in this file. The court-appointed evaluator found the children securely attached to their mother and found, quote, no clinical basis for the characterization offered. The young attorney did not object. There was nothing to object to. You cannot object to the truth being read back into the room. Shane asked to speak. The judge allowed it. I think a part of me still hoped, even then, that he would use the moment to become someone I could respect again. He stood. He did not look at me. He looked at the judge. Your Honor, I love my children, he said. Everything I did because I was afraid of losing them. When you are the one home every night and she's off being a hero, you start to feel like you're the only real parent. I made mistakes, but my intentions were about the kids. Judge Coburn let him finish. Then she was quiet for a moment, and when she spoke, her voice was not angry, which made it worse for him. Mr. Rourke, she said, I do not doubt that you love your children. Most people who do great harm to a family love someone in it. That is what makes these cases so sad. But love is not what is in front of me today. What is in front of me is a documented plan to strip a fit parent of her children through deception, funded by a loan taken against the children's own home, built while she was serving her country and unable to defend herself. Intentions do not launder that. The record does not care how you felt. It only records what you did. She let that sit. Shane sat down. He did not speak again. Then the court heard from one more witness, and it closed the last door. Frey's own paralegal had come forward. Her name was Joelle Amon. When the misconduct surfaced, she had made a choice not to go down with the ship. She took the stand, and she testified plainly, and she did not try to make herself look good, which is exactly what made her believable. The affidavit was drafted before any evidence was gathered to support it, Amon said. I typed the first version myself. In February, from Mr. Frey's notes, the instability language was in it from the beginning. There was never a document behind it. There was never a source. And the internal emails produced in discovery, Vera asked. The ones discussing possession of the children and the timing of the signing. Are those authentic? They are, Amon said. I have seen them in the system. The dates and the metadata are real. I want that on the record. Is there anything else you wish to say? Judge Coburn asked her. Amon was quiet for a second. Only that I was uncomfortable with it for a long time, she said. Weeks. And I should have been uncomfortable enough to say something sooner than I did. I am sorry it took a mistake with a phone number to make me brave. Being uncomfortable enough today is why this court has a clear record, Judge Coburn said, not unkindly. The court notes it. The ruling came without any pause for effect, which is its own kind of mercy. Primary physical and legal custody of Maisie and Reese to me. The family home awarded to me as the custodial parent. The wrongly opened home equity line to be closed, the $8,000 draw charged entirely against Shane's share of the marital property. Shane granted a stepped visitation schedule, supervised at first, expanding as he demonstrated stability over time. Because the court, the judge said, does not punish children for the conduct of a parent, and these two children plainly love their father. And a formal referral of Sutton Frey to the state bar for professional misconduct. When it was my turn to speak, I said very little. I had rehearsed a speech on the drive over. I did not give it. This was never about winning, I told the court. I have two children who need at least one parent who will not lie to them. I intend to be that parent. That is all I ever wanted. Judge Coburn looked at me for a long moment. You conducted yourself, Lieutenant, she said, the way I wish more people did in this room. Quietly and exactly. Thank you for that. He came to take everything. He left with a visitation schedule and a bar complaint against his lawyer. There was no apology. I want to be honest about that, because the movies always give you the apology, and life very often does not. Shane never said he was sorry. Not at the hearing, not after, not once. For a while I waited for it, the way you keep checking a mailbox for a letter that both of you already know is not coming. The closest we came was the first supervised handoff, a Sunday, at the curb outside a family center. He came to pick the kids up for his 4 hours. He looked older than he had in March, smaller somehow, like a coat with less in it. You didn't have to do all that, he said. He meant the bar complaint. He meant the record. He meant the truth out loud in a room full of people. I thought about all the answers I had rehearsed on 153 nights and never gotten to use. I did not use any of them. Yes, I said. I did. Be on time bringing them back. They do not like waiting. That was all. I did not scream. I did not tell him what he was. I had learned something on that deployment and in those courtrooms that I had not known before. The loud version of justice is almost always the weakest one. I did not need him ruined. The court had drawn the line. The bar would deal with Frey. My job was not to burn my children's father down to ash. My job was to make sure that no one could ever again convince a room that I had disappeared. His mother called me once, that spring. Patrice. She had believed her son, and she had said things during it that I will not repeat, and I had braced for her to defend him to the end. I did not know he took a loan against the house, she said instead. Her voice was thin. I did not know about the lawyer's plan. I want you to know I did not know. Okay, I said. The children, she said. Will I still... am I still allowed? You're their grandmother, I said. You be good to them and honest with them, and you'll always have a place in their lives. That part was never mine to take. It's yours to keep or lose. It was not forgiveness, exactly. It was a boundary with a door in it. That was the most I had, and it was enough. The first weeks on my own in that house were quieter than I expected. I had braced for the kids to fall apart, and they did not. Children are more honest than adults about relief. Maisie slept better. Reese stopped the small clinging he had done since I came home, the constant checking that I was still there. I think, on some level, below words, they had felt the plan too. They had lived inside the setup without a name for it. When it lifted, they exhaled. There was one night that told me we would be all right. I found Maisie at the kitchen doorframe, standing on her toes, trying to measure herself against the pencil marks in the dark. I wanted to see if I grew while you were gone, she said, a little embarrassed. I turned the light on, I got the pencil, I made a new mark above the last one, and I wrote the date next to it, and she pressed her back to the wall and held her breath the way she has done since she was 3. You grew a whole bunch, I said. So did the ocean, she said. But you came back over it anyway. I had to turn away for a second at that. Then I made her hot chocolate, and it was a school night, and I did not care. People asked me why I did not push harder, why I did not go after Shane for everything, why I let the bar handle Frey instead of making it my personal war. Because bitterness is a full-time job, and I already had 2. I sat Maisie and Reese down, separately, in pieces they could hold. I told Maisie that her dad and I would not be married anymore, and that it was not her fault, and that it was not because of anything she did or did not do. I told her that her dad loves her in the way that he is able to love, and that I love her in the way that I am able to love, and that her only job was to be 7. Is Daddy in trouble? She asked. Grown-ups sometimes make bad choices, I said, and then they have to fix them. That is Daddy's job to fix, not yours. Your job is to be a kid. She thought about that a long time, the way she does. Can we get pancakes? She asked. So we got pancakes, and I did not make one shaped like a heart, and I did not need to, because we were happy over the plain round ones, and happy is not a shape you have to fold into the batter. I stopped checking the mailbox for the apology, and the strange thing, the thing that nobody tells you, is that the day I stopped waiting for him to say he was sorry was the day the weight finally came off my chest. I had been holding my breath since the 8th of March, since the shy kids on the pier. I finally let it out. It is summer now. Months have passed. I am telling you this from the kitchen with the crayon marks on the doorframe, in the house that is only mine now. The locks are the same. I never changed them. Changing them felt like something a frightened person does, and I was done being frightened in my own home. The name on the mortgage is only mine. It is enough. It is more than enough. Maisie is 8 now. She measured herself against the doorframe on her birthday, the way we always have, and I made the mark. And she has grown taller than I can believe. Reese is 5 and no longer calls me by my first name. He calls me Mom, loudly, from other rooms, for no reason at all except that he can. And every single time it lands in me like a small good thing detonating. There is a promotion board result pending. My command wrote me a strong endorsement. Whatever happens with it, I am still on the track, still in the uniform, still the woman the record describes. 9 months of somebody else's story did not change one single line of my file. I keep the green notebook in a drawer now. I do not open it much. But sometimes on a hard night, I take it out and I read the entry from the 12th of March, written in my own careful hand at 11:47 at night. And I remember the woman who sat on the edge of a guest bed with her whole life on fire and chose to copy the evidence before she let herself feel a thing. I am proud of her. She saved all 3 of us. She did it quietly, and she did it exactly. Shane sees the kids on his schedule. He has mostly been on time. The visits are longer now than they were because he has done the things the court asked of him, and I have not stood in the way because they are his children too, and I am not in the business of teaching them to hate their father. Sutton Frey is answering to the state bar. That is not my fight anymore. I handed it to the people whose fight it is, and I went home to my kids. Here's the thing I keep coming back to. He sent his whole plan to the one person it was designed to destroy. And he did it because he was so certain I would never see it coming that he got careless with a single digit. The thing he counted on, my not looking, my not fighting, my wanting peace so badly that I would sign anything to get it, that was the exact thing that saved me. Because I did look. And peace, it turns out, is not the thing you get by signing. Peace is the thing you get by refusing to. If my story has taught you anything, let it be this. When someone shows you a plan to erase you, believe them the first time, and then do the quiet, patient, unglamorous work of proving that you were here all along. Do not scream. Do not sign. Keep the receipts. The truth is slow, but it does not tire, and it will outlast every lie ever built to bury it. If this story moved you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it tonight. Someone who has been told that they disappeared, when the truth is they were fighting the whole time to stay, and I would love to hear from you. If you have ever been underestimated by the people who should have known you best, tell me about it in the comments. I read them. This is a place where those stories are believed. If you want more stories about courage, justice, and hope, subscribe and stay with us, because there are many more of them to tell, and they all end the way this one does, with the truth standing up. Thank you for being here with me. Thank you for listening to the whole way through. It means more than you could know. The end.